Well, hello. Dave Hill coming at you today with your lesson. This is lesson 10. And I know you've been working hard at home and you've been practicing a lot and getting a lot out of these lessons. And I know I've been having a lot of fun making them and creating the videos for you. So let's just keep up the good work together and we're going to really get somewhere as musicians. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what we're going to do in this lesson. We're going to talk and review some chord voicings and chord shapes so that I can continue to expand your knowledge of some chords as I also write them on in progressions and use them in our lessons. I need to make sure that you understand the chords that I'm writing and the progressions that you're practicing over. So we're going to talk about some of the bar chord shapes and review some of the ones that we've learned and just make sure that you're up to speed on all of these. Okay, so I know you're warming up before you do this lesson, so I'm going to save the warm-up exercise and let you do that at home. But remember, we've done stretching exercises before. We've done sequences. We learned our first sequence a few lessons ago, and that was a major third sequence. So make sure you're doing that, and I'll go back to that in another time. Okay, so you can see over here, I've written out the chord forms that we've been covering up till now. And I want to review these today because I feel it's very important, and it has a lot to do with future lessons we're going to be working on. And as I've said before, the basics are really, really important in your knowledge. The better that you know the basics, the more they apply to the advanced stuff we're going to talk about eventually. So as you recall, one of the first few lessons we talked about the roots, and the roots eventually had chords that we built around them. Well, let's talk about the chords that eventually become movable shapes. This first chord here, pattern 1, as you can see, if you remember correctly, it originated from this first major open string chord that we played, a C chord, right? And we called that a pattern 1 shape. But when it became a movable form, we had to bar our first finger and we basically take the same voicing, but now it's a movable form, right? So the C shape becomes pattern 1 as a movable form like this, right? The root, as you can see, is played there and there, and that makes this a D shape, a D chord, pattern 1. This would therefore be an F chord, a G chord. Wherever this root is, these roots right here become the name of the chord. Okay, so that's a pattern 1 shape. Now, as we move up the neck to the next voicing, check it out. Notice how the root here of this chord is now part of the upper voicing of pattern 2. The lower root is here, but the upper structure is now with our barred third finger, or you can even use your fourth finger. Okay? So that's a pattern 2 shape, and that originated from the A form down here. Okay? So we have G, D, okay? And then carrying on, we go up to pattern 3, and check it out. Here's the top part of pattern 2 now connected right here to pattern 3. And you can see now I've just put on the bottom root here and the third, and then the upper structure is exactly the same part right here. So this is pattern 3, and that, as you recall, came from the G form. Okay, but now it's movable, so I can play that anywhere on the neck, and I've got a movable D shape with this voicing. And that comes in handy a lot. I like this voicing because I can do a lot of stuff around the voicing. There's a lot of little licks you can kind of play. Okay, so that's very handy for a lot of rhythm guitar stuff. Okay, and then as we move up the neck here, the bottom root here now is going to be played with our first finger, and you'll see the familiar bar form of the D chord up here at the 10th fret, and that, as you recall, originated from the open E chord. So very easy to play, a little squished this far up, but you know, you can play it all over the neck, and this is the root right here, and also right here, and actually the root is also there. I didn't circle it, but there it is. So this is D right here. Okay, and then finally, the last shape of the triads is way up here. Okay, and as you'll know, there's the root right here now on the D string, And then we've got our pattern 5 shape. And you might see already that that originated from the open D form. Now way up here an octave above with our root right here. Now people actually can also see how that there's another note you can play on the bottom if you'd like. And that's going to be right here if you'd like to put that on the bottom. It's not the root, but it's an acceptable chord tone. It's the third. So a lot of people like to play the third on the bottom, and they don't play this on the top anymore. They just play the third, the root, the fifth, and the root again. They don't play that. So either one, it's good to represent pattern 5. Okay? So keep in mind, these are all major chords. Okay? Now, obviously, music has other flavors of harmony besides major chords. We learned in another lesson why a chord is called major and why it's called minor. But the simple fact remains that all these are major chords because they all have roots, thirds, and fifths. And specifically the third, the type of third, is a major third, the major third of the scale. So as you remember now from a previous lesson too, we want to make sure that we can also play these as minor chords. So all we have to do to make these minor chords is simply find the third of each of these chords and modify it to a minor third. Basically, play it a half step down, and you will have minor chords. Okay, so let's erase this for a second and replace that with minor, and I'm gonna make them minor chords simply by doing this. Erase this note right here. And I'm going to have to erase this up top here because I'm not going to be able to play that anyway. And now I'm going to have a minor chord like that. Check out how that sounds. Here's the major before. Now it becomes minor. It's a little difficult, but you can do it. Right? You notice right away the sound is minor because I took the third that was right here and I moved it down to the minor third. And now we've got a nice voicing, a little tight, a little stretched down there, but if you played it maybe higher, you feel that it's pretty doable. Okay, so this is D minor. Okay, once again, on the next voicing, we got to find the third of the chord. So if I review my voicing, 1, 5, 1, the third is right there. So I'm going to get rid of that because that's not going to work if it's going to be a minor chord. And I'll simply put it right here. And now I've got a minor chord. Okay, so there was major, and here's minor. That's a nice voicing. So minor, minor. And then as we go up the neck here to the next shape, we can see that there's a third here, and there's a third here in this chord. And this is going to be an issue here. We're going to have to figure out how to play that because you'll find that it doesn't make sense to play the minor third here, and then you got a major third on the top. That doesn't sound good. So what we end up doing here is we really modify this chord quite a bit. We don't use the bottom part of the chord as much on a minor form. We actually do this. We actually play the minor third right here, and then we bar with our fourth finger. So in reality, we don't use this. And we have a root focus on the top here. Okay, so that's what happens. The major shape of pattern 3 really becomes more usable as a minor chord in this form. We just don't use the bottom part of it. It's still just as much of a minor chord, but we just don't have to play the root on the bottom. The root is on the top in this case. That makes it more playable. So there's your minor chord. Okay, moving on to pattern 4, where we would have played major right here. We'll know pretty quickly that the major third was right there, and there's only one of them to deal with, so it's pretty easy to fix this one and make it minor. We're just going to bar across the neck right here, and the minor third happens inside of this bar now. So there's our minor chord, totally playable, no problem there. And then we're going to do something here. It's going to make this the minor chord by taking the third that was right here, putting it right there. And now, there's our minor chord on a pattern 5 shape, which would have been played down here in an open form. Okay?